Hello, everyone. I am Rick Zanotti.
And I'm Dr. Susan Nash.
Yes, she is. I can vouch for her. Anyway, today our special guest is Dr. Susan Nash. She is becoming our official co-host for the show. So she's been on several times, but she's gotten promoted or demoted, depending on how much work she does, to the show. We love having her. Susan's been great. Her and I have done 2 shows together already. We did 100 or 200 episodes of another show, and then we did another show we still have. We're not sure if we're going to continue that one. And she's joining us now on eLearnChat. She's a veteran of doing podcasts. And joining us also will be Harold Muliati. He's our video director, and he's also going to be help co-hosting today. Here we go. This show is sponsored by Relate Corporation. Visit us at www.relatecasts.net. Thanks. And we are back. And Susan, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. It's really thrilled to be here. And I don't know, I sometimes think that e-learning is kind of just doing the same all the time, and then something happens and I go, oh no, it's completely different. And I think a lot of it has to do with our circumstances and our needs.
Yeah, it's funny. It hasn't changed a lot, and it's changed a lot. Like you said, it's kind of both. Sometimes it drives you crazy, and other times you go, okay, it's doing okay. I think right now we're at a moment in e-learning where it's weird. It's not like it was. It's not even like it could be. A lot of people aren't putting the money into it like they were. They're looking for shortcuts to train as much as possible without having to go to more complex e-learning courses, or what they want to do is what they all think is short learning, quick learning. There's a lot of different words for it, but what they want is something really short that they think they can get more money out of by spending less. They're not looking at the training aspect of it. They're looking at the budget part of it. So when you say micro-learning, they go, great, it's cheap. No. Micro-learning could be a 1-hour course. It's just what you do with it and how you teach people. Because maybe in an hour, you could teach what you need in 10 hours or 15 hours or an hour and a half. It just depends. So there's always that kind of thing. And now we did also open it up today. So if people are in the chat room and they want to ask questions on anything, just a question and answer session, we're here. We could have some fun with you folks. And we don't know. Hopefully they are here. We rescheduled. Susan got stuck in traffic today in a big traffic snarl, and took her a long time to get back in. So we had to postpone the show a couple of hours. But hopefully you saw the change of time. And if you're in the chat room, please join us. And if you have any questions, please ask. We're more than willing to give you an answer or defray you and take it offline until we figure out what you're talking about.
Exactly. Well, so one of the things that I've been really interested in recently is just the concept of how people can get credit through exams, or they show competency through exams.
Yeah.
But then what's actually in the psychometrics? And I've had a chance to kind of dig into that in this last year. I've been in developing exams, but also studying a little bit about exactly what goes into it. And it's actually kind of surprising. It's very, very difficult to write a good test, first of all. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the writing of it, the STEM and all that, but it's how you have to match every single learning objective, make sure that you have a question that covers that, and that it's at the right level, and that it's actually assessing something. It's not too easy or transparent.
And you're right, that is difficult. I've known a lot of instructional designers in my life, and not one likes writing assessments. Not one. They find it not only tedious, but a lot of times the assessments don't truly measure what you're trying to impart. They do if maybe it's not a soft skill course, or maybe It's something that you can say, let's say you're doing a simulation. That's probably a little bit easier to come up with something because they have to reproduce the steps in a simulation. But in soft skills, when there's a million concepts, you can't ask a million questions. How do you determine?
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I would say even more than soft skills, if you're at the level of Bloom's where you're in the remembering level,
Mm.
that's most basic and it's like identify and list and all that, you're fine. I mean, I think it's not that hard, and you can, especially if you're using visual support. But once you get even to understand, that's the second level. When you get to apply or analyze, um, and of course, let's not even talk about create or evaluate. I mean, how are you going to create a multiple choice test?
Yeah, it's not easy. Now, Harold, you graduated school way after we did. What did you take any online assessments?
I took online assessments when I took online classes. I took some of the classes I took online when I went to school, but other than that, it was in person.
Now, so of the assessments, did you find that any really tested what you were supposed to learn?
Well, I guess it depends because, like in school, the teachers design the syllabi, and so some people are just better at designing those. I guess like Susan said, it takes a lot. A lot goes into it, and some people are just better at. There. I guess there are multiple skills when it comes to teaching in an academic sense. Is that some people are really good at the in class teaching. Some people are really good at the designing the syllabus and writing questions to actually make everything stick together. Those don't always necessarily go together. So it depends on the teacher.
So, Susan, what Harold's saying, it kind of points at the problem that we're seeing in corporate, government, schools, that everything's falling on one set of shoulders. And it's the worst place to have training developed on one person because they can't do it all usually. They try, but it's going to fall apart usually in one of several places. If a person is the curriculum designer, they're probably the one most likely to understand what's to be tested at one point. Maybe, not necessarily. They may not know the content material, they just know how to organize it. You also have the graphic artist. You've got the recording, the sound recording, or the audio person, the voiceover talent. You've got the programmer who puts it all together, or let's say the author, because a lot of times they're not programmers, they just can do authoring. A lot of different hats for one person. And we've talked about this in the past about instructional designers have to do everything today. And they're ultimately badly trained in most of those things or have no training in it. Not their fault. They're put into a situation where company wants to save money. They get rid of a whole development team and say, okay, it's all up to you now. Jenny, it's your show. Here, have it. You have no budget, no nothing. Have a good time.
And I guess one point related to that, which we see here at Relate, we're not a big company, so we have people in different roles, but actually, each of us can kind of do the other person's roles to some extent, but it's not just a matter of whether one person can have all the skills. It's one person doing everything. There's massive issues with, are they going to be able to catch things they did wrong? Are they going to know all of the stuff? They just might not have thought of all of the things they needed to put in. A lot of times you just need people to bounce the ideas off of and realize when it bounces back whether it's actually complete or not.
Yeah, because one of the things, you go ahead, Susan.
Well, I was just going to say that is exactly the case. And I think that's the number one problem, because if you ask a person to be a course writer plus an instructional designer plus a subject matter mistakes, and even worse, they're going to be so ground down they won't be able to be creative. And I think that one of the big problems I see, at least in a lot of the materials that come from textbook companies, et cetera, is that they're kind of recycled to the point where some of the questions could be 20 years old. They're just slightly changed. and they don't really reflect that, and they don't capture or create any kind of spark of interest, and they don't capture what's really happening in our world.
We had one client that they said, okay, at the end of this training, we want to have a game. Okay. And so you know what the game was? They sent me 100 questions. And I went, okay, this is Marquis de Sade type training. What are you talking about that this is a game? Well, we thought this game with 100 questions would be great. I go, that's just torture. What are they learning by answering 100 questions?
Oh, we'll make it into Hangman or Jeopardy.
Yeah. And so they said, okay, well, how about 50? 50. I think we got them down to, 20 by the time we were done. But still, it wasn't a game. It was questions. And they weren't necessarily tied to anything they had learned. It was just questions. And there's this certain people out there who think that a game is asking people questions. I mean, this isn't Jeopardy. It's just bizarre. And of course, the whole course, we warned them. I go, this is going to fail. The whole course is going to fail. It went from being a course that was supposed to be self-teaching, if you will. It was an immersive course. So you were in your environment, and then you went to these islands, and everything was supposed to be, you kind of guide yourself places, and you learn as you're going of where you're going. And they go, that's wonderful. We love that. HR got involved. We don't want them going there. We want them going here, right there. Well, but you just took it from being immersive to now you're directing the course. But that's not immersive. It doesn't matter. They need to go here, 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 and here, in that order. Okay. I said, and you are aware this will fail. No, it won't, because this is now 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we make sure they learn everything. But now they're going to hate taking this course. No. This is a big company, 30-something thousand employees. You know how many people took that course? 3. It was supposed to be company-wide. 300. It failed. It failed. And then they said, well, the vendor didn't do it right. No.
Of course.
No. Unfortunately, we document everything. It's like, no, we warned you. This is going to fail. You're doing it wrong. You're not putting it out correctly. You're boring the hell out of people. And so that was the end of immersive training for a while over there. And this is a large networking company. And you just go, this is a modern company, right? Nope. It had to be done the worst way possible. So what was kind of fun, they would go on they would meet people from different cultures. They would do this and that. And it was kind of fun. So instead, they made it, you will do it this way. Nobody liked it. No, everybody hated it. Plus, of course, he had a 100-question game that got whittled down to 20. These are interesting things. And no matter how much you try sometimes to tell people, this probably won't work. No, this is the way it's going to be. Okay. All right. Well, be warned. One strike, here's a second strike. Third strike, it's gone. They're all not going to take it.
And heaven help the poor. Okay. At least that was like self-guided and self-grading, automatic grading. Heaven help the person. Yeah. Heaven help the person who has to grade all that stuff. It's so horrible.
Right.
I mean, so go to eLearningCorgi.com, Harold. I put a blog post up 2 days ago, and just click on what is Bob Ross and Mary Cassatt. So I'm teaching a course in humanities, and anyway, they were talking about Impressionists, etc. And I was reading a lot about Bob Ross, and I thought, and 4 of his paintings have been recently acquired by the Smithsonian. But I thought, okay, why is Bob Ross kitsch, and why are the Impressionists great art? And so I just really got intrigued by that. And in point of fact, a lot of the early Impressionists were considered kind of kitschy, and then of course we love Romanticism, Thomas Cole, the Oxbow. But then I put a Bob Ross stream with happy little trees.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down at I wanted to compare Ross and then just what the American transcendentalist romantics were doing.
Hmm.
And it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I actually went to school for fine art, and in general, I really just don't like the I don't like when people introduce this kind of condescension and elitism into art.
Hmm.
I think that if art looks good, then it's good. I a lot of a lot of people don't agree with that, I guess, but I just feel like it also cuts through the thing of people who make stuff that is kind of emperor's new clothes, like that Italian guy that had a can of his own feces and sold it for however many thousands or millions of dollars.
That's art.
I think art, like anyone else,
Concept art, of
Yeah.
course.
you have to you have to be able to laugh at yourself, but B, you also shouldn't be taking yourself too seriously.
Right.
I mean, I guess those are the kinds of people that make huge amounts of money off of art that in a way that's kind of unrealistic for most others. But yeah,
I did the ultimate snafu one time when I was at an art showing. I got invited by an aunt. I was actually living in Argentina. Actually, we were visiting on vacation in Argentina. And so one of my aunts says, "Come on, I have a friend who's an artist." And she was an artist too. And she goes, "She's doing an art showing and you have to come." So I went with my wife and we were there. And I'm just looking at some of the art thinking, ew. There's this one painting I'm looking at which had a little sun, a little stick figure. This is something, so this lady comes up to me, I don't know who she was, and goes, "What do you think of that?" And I said, "Looks like a 3-year-old painted this." She went and walked away.
That was the wrong answer.
Well, she was the artist.
Oh my goodness.
Oops. I was sorry about that. I told my aunt, "I'm so sorry," but she asked me, I didn't know who it was, and I go, "Look like a 3-year-old painted it." And she laughed. She goes, "Well, yeah." She goes, "She's probably insulted." I go, "Well, I didn't mean to insult her. It just looked like a 3-year-old could have painted that." And I was going, okay, art is art. It's whatever, it's in the eye of the beholder. And in this case, to me, like I said, a 3-year-old could have done an equally good job of that thing. But it's like, oh, geez, I didn't mean to insult her. But
well, another thing too is like, okay, so people say, okay, 20th century postmodernist art, abstract expressionist, etc. Okay, it's art because of the concepts behind it, and you add the philosophy, etc. So I thought, okay, maybe Bob Ross doesn't have all that. But then you think, okay, Bob Ross is not subversive. But actually, if you compare what he's doing with his landscapes with the romantics, he is kind of subversive.
right.
And I was thinking, okay, his palette is a little bit like North Korean socialist realism.
That really connotes some beautiful romantic moments in my mind. Yes.
well, and you see, it comes back to gamification, because I guess for some people, a game is just anything you want to call a game. It could just be a button.
It is, yeah. But people think when they hear gamification, this is the biggest disservice to the e-learning industry. We want a game. What kind of game do you want? We want a game that is really exciting and fun. Okay. How much budget do you have? $1,000. Okay. What do you want it to look like? So they come up and say, it has to look like Call of Duty. Okay. That game costs millions to make. Well, can you do it for $1,000? Can you do it for $1,000?
And we actually had we had a really good discussion on eLearnChat with Kevin Siegel about this, and that's the thing. The thing that people don't get is that the part of a game that makes it a game, it isn't the part necessarily the part that you're seeing or hearing. It's what a game needs is what's called the loop. You need to introduce concepts, then test it in a way that the person's probably they're probably going to fail at it, and then you put them in that situation again until they you keep going back and having them try out these concepts or skills or whatever, and then introducing more, and then eventually they're getting this feedback from it. They're getting rewarded by going through it successful, and you keep putting them back through.
By the way, speaking of gamification, did you have that piece of art we were talking about before the show, the royal thing?
Yeah, well, let's see. We
Well,
were
you know what?
talking about
We said this is
Susan's
Susan's first day
coronation.
now as an official co-host, and we didn't really give her the correct honor that we needed to. So,
Yeah,
Susan, just sit still for a moment.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
There is Susan's crown.
Thank you.
She is now the co-host and queen of eLearning now, right?
Yes.
Well, so she is the assistant to the queen, the corgi.
Yeah.
That's the corgi, the eLearning corgi he takes us to.
Really,
Yeah.
we need a miniature crown for the corgi, but
That's right, but we didn't have time to make it.
Well, thank you for not turning me into a corgi puppy.
Oh, that's funny.
although with you, I'm not sure if that's a sincere thanks or you actually did want to be turned into a corgi puppy.
So anyway,
Please don't turn me into a corgi puppy.
please, anything but that. I'm still working on that North Korean socialist image of the.
Barbara.
Well, you brought up.
Colors.
But look at eLearning today, and look at what it was. I'll give you 20 years ago, eLearning looked a hell of a lot better than it does today. Because people had full teams developing these gorgeous classes, and they look good. They're usually very effective, and then it all went away. Then we went for the shortcut learning. It doesn't have to be that way, and there still is good e-learning out there, but it's harder to find.
Well, there's another issue. They even make the poor instructional designer or the SME create the PowerPoint.
Yes.
And I was just going, there's no way that I'm going to be able to do this where it looks good and do these thousands of things and get it done in like 36 hours.
I know. Yeah. And then after you finish your PowerPoint, they go, Susan, our deck changed. We have to redo it. It's like, and then you wonder why everybody does bullets everywhere.
Yeah.
But this is kind of what's going on in the industry. It's just, it can drive you mad sometimes because when you talk to people, they all want games, but they want Nintendo games, and they don't want just stupid games. They want really advanced games, and you go, that game costs $5 million to make or $15 million. And people go, you have a $10,000 budget. So can you do it? It's like, sure. What do you say? No, you can't. You don't have budget for that kind of game. It's too expensive. They go, well, what can you do? And and then you see the other stuff. Here's a tic-tac-toe game. Oh no, not tic-tac-toe, or some other little simple game, and they're boring and nobody wants to do them.
Well, you can see these pathetic attempts to try to satisfy that with all these different apps that do the handwriting and coloring and all this automated stuff. It's like
we've had to do some handwriting courses recently, and I was going, "What you don't want that much? No, I want it all handwritten." All right, and we did one, and you know what's funny? Everybody loved it. We're just going, really? Everybody says, "Oh, did you guys do that? We love that course." Okay, good. And you don't know. It's like you hit a ball. Where'd it go? I don't know. That one broke a window. Oops. Oh, though that one made a home run. Oh wait, that other one just hit a person. You don't know what you're going to get. I mean, it's just sort of scary.
Well, the other one too. Okay, so there's the one that does all the things, the handwriting and making the little drawings, and it's like automated. I can't remember the name of it. There's couple.
There's Doodly. There's Video Scribe. We use Video Scribe, but Doodly is just as good.
Yeah. And I mean, like you said, people love them. It's just in the wrong hands, it's not pretty. And then the other one that people like to do is they like to do animations, but they're the kind of animations in a can. And you, I think that's kind of losing popularity.
Well, a lot of times they're out of context. So if the animation sort of fits what you're trying to teach, maybe. But if it doesn't, and you're trying to force it, people may not get it. And of
True.
course, the other thing is people are not always training to the age level or education level of the student. So if you're training upper management and you have flying donkeys running around the whole screen and stuff, and the manager's going, I really hate this and I don't want to click anymore. It's the wrong game, or it's the wrong training for that level of person. Now, mind you, a lot of times there's a halfway point between what is acceptable, what isn't. But getting there is tricky. And you have to ask the question, what kind of training do you want to see? Do you want this kind of engagement? Do you want a different kind of engagement? I don't know. So then, of course, when people say, I don't know, that means whatever you do, it's a 50-50 shot. They will or won't like it. Once you get to know a client or a team, then you kind of have an idea what they like and what they don't like. Or something people don't ask is, what kind of training do you like? Do you have an example of it? Then you might be able to get somewhere, because at least you know what they're kind of liking. And all you can hope for is that it makes sense.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. It's a tough question, and I'm not sure the industry is getting better at it. Again, when Doodly or VideoScribe now become what everybody wants for everything, that's not the best way to go either. Harold's become an expert at VideoScribe.
Well, and one thing about these, which I thought you brought up an interesting point, Susan, about if people don't know how to use them well, is that if you only use the stuff that like the stock stuff they give you, it actually looks pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
So what we end up doing is a lot of workarounds, which actually is true for any authoring tool, a lot of workarounds and a lot of bringing in, new unique stuff to actually make it look more personalized and more fitting to whatever it is we're talking about, because most of the time they just don't have the stuff that you need to show.
Well, that's true. And then the other thing too, when you're putting together a PowerPoint with scenarios and you want to have people, so you get all these different e-learning art, the same models in all these different positions,
right,
and showing different expressions. So, okay, I've noticed it's sad when you see the same model in all these different types of training.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know so I guess not one person is going to get into all training, but it just makes you wonder,
Yeah, I mean, we used to do that for a point years ago to humanize the course a bit. To have some people, and people like that.
I like it too.
And then one day we hit one client. So we had some avatars, and they were actually in context with what we were doing. They wasn't just pointing, but they were doing things. And the guy goes, "Who's this person? I don't know that person." It's just an avatar. He's in a movie? What kind of? I saw Avatar, the movie. What does this have to do? It's okay. It's kind of an on-screen narrator, but he's not moving. He's not saying anything.
Yeah.
You're right. Get rid of him. Okay, so we had to get rid of him. He did not like that anonymous person who did not belong to the company. And what do? We got rid of him. So then we did another course for that same person. And the guy goes, "Where's that person? Where's the people? You told us to get rid of them last time." "Oh, but now I know who they are. Why don't you put them back?" Well, it's like
that's hilarious.
There's another point also about knowing who people are, because occasionally they'll want people put in that are people that actually work at the company, but then later those people are no longer working for the company and don't want to be in the course.
So then you get a call. "We got to get rid of this course now. It's horrible." "What happened?" "They left." "Oh, okay. We can replace them." "Okay, put somebody else in. This person." "Okay," and then you do it, and they go, "Wait, he left too." So you're always in these little situations where, you have to look at it in a funny way, because otherwise you cry. So you just have to have some fun with it. But this is the kind of stuff that happens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, speaking of fun, one of the most fun things I did once was I put together a course where I took pictures, photographs, and put people in with the e-learning characters or whatever, and then I did thought bubbles or conversation bubbles, and had them in little, it sort of looked a little bit like a graphic novel.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of work, but it was really fun. and I would write these little scenarios,
Mm-hmm.
like,
Now, how do people
and
like it?
they liked it.
Good.
They kind of, but I mean, I only did it once. No, well, I did it for several different scenarios, and for like 2 or 3 different things. But I don't know.
And for
It kind of takes
scenarios,
it
there's a good. There's one tool called Dialogue Coach. It can create
Mm-hmm.
really nice scenarios and things like that. There's all sorts of tools that could do that, and they make the learning more fun, or at
Yes.
least maybe a little more personal, or a little more
Mm-hmm.
specific to what they're trying to learn or teach. But a lot of things are so out of context, and again, instructional designers may know how to write, but they may not be creative. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
huge issue. A lot of people think an instructional designer by nature is creative. They're not. They're curriculum designers. That doesn't make them creative. And when they start having to write something creative, they fall flat on their face many times. And, we've talked about this on our show at other times that, people should learn how to do screenwriting and other things just to give them a different approach to writing. And so that they can get or take something in creative writing, so they learn how to present differently than just, here's the facts, ma'am. Dragnet, Jack Webb. It's like, just the facts, ma'am, nothing else. That's boring.
I totally agree with you, and I think the problem is like you're forced to kind of be an auditor when you're doing the instructional design
Yeah.
role, and so you're just like, you feel like you're a bank auditor, and that's just not where you get, doesn't give you the freedom or the mental freedom to flow. And I think,
Yeah.
Harold, since you're trained as a fine artist, how do you feel about that?
About what? What specifically?
Well, when you're going through and like maybe kind of like being the auditor role and making sure that you're like proofing and making sure things line up to the learning objectives and all that, then you think creating something exciting and engaging using art.
Well, I would say that the thing with that, if I understood your question correctly, because the process can take so long, it is true that it can kind of sap some of the energy out of the final product. So what you do in art is you have to make stuff in stages. You do a sketch or like a thumbnail of something really quick, so that way, hopefully, that contains the energy and stuff that you want to capture, because that part was quick and you're done with it, first 20, 30 minutes or something, and then you go in and do the other stuff, and then you try to do stuff in stages so that the stuff that's least going to affect the overall composition and stuff, the overall feel of it, are the things that you're taking longer on and you're doing later.
We've actually spent the last almost 4 years retraining Harold in how to suffer. Because he does a lot of different things, and and it takes him out of the fine artist role into a more digital role many times. But he does well, and again, he's got the curiosity to want to learn and do different things, so that makes it more fun and interesting. But it's a team environment. We work together, and that's part of media development. It's hard to find where one person can do it all. And in fact, it doesn't really exist where you can do it all and not miss something along the way, because there's so much to do. There's so many little nuances to doing it right. And it's tough. It's tough to get all of those components, pieces together, not only in one person, but in one project. And I think that's kind of what's happened to the industry a lot, where it's been so compartmentalized away from a good multimedia development mind into the poor shoulders of an instructional designer, that what we have is what we get, what we're paying for, what we see. It doesn't work that well.
I agree.
So it is fun. Sometimes
is.
it's fun.
I think if you give yourself the freedom to like think about quirky things, you have to do everything that you think of. But you can do it. You don't have to like make it final, but you can at least let yourself think and imagine.
Yep. Well, that music means we're done. It's our end of show.
Where's my crown? My crown.
Where's her crown? Her crown?
Give you back.
I like the music. Later on, we will knight you too.
Yeah. Rick does have a sword. So
I do have a sword. I can bring my my sword back in. I have a couple. I have 3 swords actually. So anyway, well, thank you all for watching. Do we have any questions in the chat room at all?
No.
No. Okay. You know what? When we have time changes, it's hard to drag people with us sometimes. But anyway, we will do this again another time. We'll be back next week. By the way, next week we have David Kelly from the eLearning Guild. He'll be with us talking all about DevLearn and what's been going on. So it'll be fun to see him again. And we will see you next week on eLearnChat. Have a good one, everyone. Thank you much, Susan. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.